All right, still on the bonnet. Now I've got to finish early today, but we'll get as much done as we can. Now this is where we start to change up the filming a little bit, now that we've caught up. Don't know how it's going to go into a little bit more detail. Yeah, we'll see. If you're curious, I've had no formal training in this sort of work at all. I was just into cars from a young age. I started at least trying to paint my first car when I was about 14. And I didn't have a lot of money, so I couldn't afford and still can't really, afford expensive tools, and I certainly could never afford to pay someone to do this kind of work. So when you're in that situation, you're kind of forced, man, how has that gone? You're kind of forced to figure shit out for yourself. Now, I didn't have anyone in my family, apart from my pop, I guess, that was into cars. I got a little bit of mechanical knowledge from him. But apart from that, I had to figure most of this shit out the hard way. And that means making a lot of mistakes along the way. Now, the further I got into it, I started to get to know a few people that I could get tips and tricks from. I also started buying books, especially on the mechanical side of things, and got quite a bit of knowledge from there. But I'm more of a practical learner, which means you can put a book in front of me, I can read that thing back to front, and until I actually get my hands on something, I still struggle to get my head around it. So apart from having a couple of mates here and there that used to mess about with cars as well, I was kind of on my own. Now, I'd never recommend learning that way because it kind of sucks. Constantly making mistakes, having to try and figure out what happened, why it happened, and how to rectify it. This is starting to look okay, kind of. Depending on how this channel goes, this is more of a mess about experimental type thing, but depending on how this goes and if I get enough subscribers, I might do some mechanical stuff as well. Because the car that's coming in after this will be a VK. It's a factory V8 wagon, VK Commodore. And I'll be doing a Brock tribute build on that. So that's going to be smoothed engine bay, mini turbot, custom interior. Yeah, if I get enough, I don't know, views, subscribers, whatever, I'll document all that as well. I'll also bring in my Caprice home soon. So that means I get to mess around with HP tuners again. I've still got a bit of tuning to do on that. Anyway, we've got the bonnet kind of close. The gap, actually I should probably grab, nah, fuck it, camera can stay there. Gap's decent along the top. So the gap is where we want it in this corner. And it starts to tighten up about there. But it's not tightening up a whole lot. This corner, I'm going to have to hit with a slide hammer and bring this up a bit. I'm almost ready to put this bonnet latch back in. I like to, whenever I gap a car, when I gap the doors, for instance, I like to have the doors assembled fully weighted and remove the strikers and the latch and gap it and adjust it that way. I do the same with all panels. That's why I removed the latch on this. Once I got this square, I'll put the latch in, and depending on where you position that could shift the bonnet to the left, to the right, whatever. It may not even latch correctly, but then rather than adjust the bonnet around the latch and mess up all these gaps, I adjust the latch to the bonnet. All right, I'm kind of happy with that. Well, shouldn't have said that and just jinxed myself. And across the front of this bonnet, I don't know how, I've completely fluked it. We're pretty close to where we want this. It's probably a little loose. and this side is about the same. So the gap on this corner and this corner are really, really close to each other, which means we have this front reasonably well squared up, which once again is why I took all those measurements. Okay, now that we've done that, I'm just going to figure out where I can start moving this metal to clean up those transitions a bit. So we've got the gap opening up a lot. Jeez, man. We've got the gap opening up a lot through here. That could mean that this has just been twisted down. So what I'll do, as I'm bending this down the front of this roller, I'm just seeing if it lifts up around here. So the idea is I want this to transition, even though, I don't know, explain this. Okay, so it's a fairly aggressive drop off here, but I still want that to be as clean as I can get it. And we're going to get away with that. So next I'm going to try and twist this up. That might not work because I'm going to guess as I bring this up, it's going to dip these edges down. Yep, and that's exactly what's happening. All right. Okay, I've got to put the bolts in down there. I'll bring you back once we've done some adjustments. So we're on the passenger side now. That actually looks pretty good. Bit of a rounded edge, but I think that's a little tight anyway, so I have to do a bit of shaving, bit of welding over there. Let's move over to the driver's side. So driver's side is looking pretty good. Again, we have that rounded edge. Figure something out with that. Now it is sitting down a bit. I have to adjust the striker on the bonnet side, but it's kind of looking like a car again, sorta. So definitely spoke too soon. So that is looking way too low. I just put the vent in. That's going to need some massaging. Make life a little bit easier. I've marked it all out so you can see. Anywhere blue is sheet metal that I've had to knock down. Now if we come down to this angle, you can see that, look at this corner here. It's still a long way out, even though we've spent quite a bit of time on that. Now, if this was a show car, you'd have to do a lot more work, but I don't know, I might come back to that. So anyway, blue stuff I've knocked down. Anywhere white areas I've had to bring up. So go further down, knocked all this area down. So I mentioned how this was, I think I mentioned how this was sitting really high. We actually have a big crease, big dent through here as well. Towards the front, knock that in. Still got quite a bit of work to do along here. We need to close this gap up, and on top of that, we weren't able to bring this down as much as I wanted. We started to get an odd shape. So I don't know what we're going to do there. Knock this in. All of this had to be brought up. The rest was, I think there's a little spot here we knocked down. Feather up. Corner, I mean this is pretty common. This corner, lifted that up. All of this had to be knocked down, and you can see once again on the vents the work we've had to do to try and tidy them up. This side's looking a little bit better. So most of the transitions from panel to panel are pretty close to bonnet to guard to nose cone. So now what I'm trying to do is sort all this out. So I think I showed earlier how low this area is sitting. and I was able to show that it's not like this has been pushed in. But what I'm going to try to do is bring this up. I don't think this is going to work, but I'm going to give it a go anyway. So I'll bring this up it's actually worse right there. So it's probably 5 millimeters or so low. So what I'll be doing is trying to pull this up, and I'll keep checking with this straight edge just to make sure that we're not creating any low spots in this area, so we don't get that ramping effect. So we've had a little bit of success after a lot of messing about. We've got that the vent to the bonnet all sorted now. Don't know how well this is going to show it, but we now have a nice clean transition. That took quite a bit of work, but got to take the wins when you can get them. So I put the phone away for a bit to get this gap done. Now what I ended up doing, so this is the feeler gauge that I'm using to gap all the doors. Now this is set to, I actually wrote it down somewhere. So this is set to about 4.8 millimeters, so 4.8 to 5, close enough. That's what I'm trying to get the gaps close to. It doesn't have to be perfect, but get it in that range. Now, as far as this goes, we had an issue because it was already fairly tight, and the problem is I didn't want to split the skin. If I split this along the edge, that means we have to do a whole heap of welding wherever I split it. Once we weld that, you need to hammer and dolly and stretch this back out, because you're bringing in heat. It's going to cause this edge to shrink down. So hammer and dolly, stretch it all out. We then have to shave it and shape it to get the gap we want. And once that's done, we then have to, or while we're doing that, I should say, we have to adjust and get this transition back to where it needs to be, because what will happen is as you bring in, or as you introduce heat, as it starts to shrink down, this corner is going to want to tip in. So I thought what we'll do is just run a slightly wider gap, run a slightly tighter gap down this side. So I started with this, filing it back. It was a little bit too aggressive. Changed over to this. And what we've ended up with is a gap that's about between 0.4 and 0.6 or 0.7 of a millimeter tighter than the rest of the car. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but you will notice the difference. That being said, I really want to get this done. And if I split the skin, we could have lost a day and a half just welding it up and sorting it out. So hopefully you're happy with that. I think the majority of people won't really notice it. And I keep saying it, but not a show car. So now that that's done, we're going to move on the other side, do the same thing. On the other side, I need to add material in a couple of spots and then file the rest. I'm hoping to get this bonnet knocked out in the next couple of days. At least that's the plan. So you'll probably realise eventually, now that I'm going into a little bit more detail, I'm the type of guy that just cannot leave shit alone. So last night we came back out after thinking about this, and I just spent a bit more time moving, manipulating, shifting this over without compromising that side too much. And we've got this to be a little bit wider, so I don't think, I don't know. I don't think you'll pick that this is still a fraction tight, but it's a lot better than when we left off yesterday. I mean, you won't be able to tell the difference in the camera, I'm sure, but it seems to have worked. If we look at around these edges here, we're still okay. And this morning I started taking this side back a bit, kind of close to where we want it. I was able to shave that down. But unfortunately, we did split it. So I'm going to have to weld that up. And we're finished. So I did go over it with a file to make sure we're all nice and straight. Now, I did slip here and there, and I've chipped the edges in a couple of spots on this primer or seal or whatever. It's not a big deal because I have to go back over everything before I high build it. Anyway, we're going to move up towards the front, and depending on how much gas we got, hopefully today we'll be able to get this closed up. That didn't exactly go to plan. That looks shite. Usually it's a lot cleaner than that. I'm having a bit of trouble dialing in this thinner wire. So normally, like trying to get the wire speed and the heat right, because normally I'd use a heavier gauge, because you need to build up quite a bit of material before you can start shaving it down. But it doesn't look pretty, but it's functional, I guess. I mean, this is directly onto the edge of this bonnet. You'll see once we get to the front, we'll be doing it a bit differently. There we go. She's all finished. Well, this side is. It's good enough for me. The basic idea is anywhere that we've had to weld and shave and whatever. So we want that to look factory, to look like nothing's actually gone on there at all. I think we've achieved that. Is it perfect? No, but it's really close. It's good enough for this car. So now we move on to the front. Now this corner we welded directly onto the panel itself, because we didn't really have to gain too much along that edge. This across the front here, we're going to use a MIG rod. So shortly, once I've cleaned all this up, we'll be welding this on. This will give me a much better finish. So we've got the passenger side finished. Unfortunately, I managed to delete footage again, so I'll go into more detail on the driver's side, but we've welded the TIG rod, cleaned it all up, filed it. Now it's still a fraction tight. I like to leave a little bit of material on there for the final file job that we do on this. But now that we've got this kind of close, we can move on to the driver's side. So you can see I've got this tacked into place. A couple of spots I need to come back in and redo, just tidy up a little bit. Still having a little bit of trouble trying to dial this wire in. So I ran out of gas the other day after I had everything dialed in to where I want it when I was doing all this. Since changing the bottle, I seem to be having trouble again. So anyway, plenty of material on there for me to file back and get that gap right. So now we'll just finish welding across the top, weld it underneath, file it, clean it all up, and see how close we can get it. And that's done. She's sorted. So the gap from the nose cone to the bonnet is officially done. I'm pretty happy with how that's come up. It's all nice and consistent now. Actually, there's a spot on the corner. See a couple of arrows there. I have to come back in and touch that up. But apart from that, we're looking good. Gap down the side's looking good. Onto the passenger side, it's fairly consistent. Shed's in a mess. I've got to clean that up, but yeah, it's turned out all right. I might just have a little bit of a play across the top here. That vent, I'm still not real happy with how that's sitting in. Little bit of messing about, but I think that'll do for this video. So I get that this isn't the most entertaining video out there. Spending, 20 odd minutes just going through a video of me gapping up a bonnet. But it's done. And maybe by putting these videos out there, people will get a better understanding of the amount of work that goes into these cars. And there's a lot I'm cutting out, so I'm not going into too much detail. Anyway, so this is ready to be stripped, the top and the back side, sealed up, waiting on sealer, so I can't really do anything with that just yet. Once that's done, then the bodywork on this side, well, the whole car actually, is officially roughed in, and we can really start dialing everything in the next video. Actually, what I might do, no, I won't do that. Next video, I'm going to sort this rust out first, sort that out in the floor pan, and then we can really start dialing this in and see how it turns out.